Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry to interrupt the social evening, but I promise you, this is something I'm very proud of here at We Don't Have Time, is that the remarks will be brief and we will get right back to the open bar and to socializing. I promise you that. This is not going to be dragged out at all. But if I can please have your attention, feel free to move a little bit closer to, don't move further, move a little bit closer to the podium, and we will kick this off. Thank you all very much for being here. So, I welcome you to our inaugural Sustainability Awards, brought to you by We Don't Have Time and the Zero Emissions Transportation Association. I'm one of your hosts. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a climate and behavioral scientist, and I'm the US president of We Don't Have Time. Please introduce yourself to me if we haven't met in person yet, and make it a point to introduce yourselves to one another. The whole point and purpose of this event tonight and of We Don't Have Time is to break down silos, to really support conversations across sectors, to share good ideas, to scale solutions, to accelerate these solutions to overcoming the climate crisis. So especially if you don't recognize somebody in the room tonight, and we hope that's the case, that's the point, please introduce yourselves and share what you're working on. And take advantage of the We Don't Have Time platform. It's a free tool. Put what you're working on the platform to really amplify your efforts. We can't keep what we're doing to ourselves. We need to share with the rest of the world. While the US is moving forward and we're so excited about it, there are countries and communities that can benefit from the knowledge that we have gleaned in these past few years in really identifying these solutions to transitioning to clean energy, to solving the climate crisis. So put your good work on this platform and continue to share these ideas. For those that are tuning in from around the world, thank you for joining us tonight. It's incredible to get people together in person, but we have the technology to bring people together from wherever they are. And the whole point, again, is to connect people, to accelerate solutions, and let's take advantage of this technology, and let's actually use the features on this app to engage with one another, to engage with hosts, to engage with speakers, and to get involved in the conversation. Everybody has a role to play. We are all contributors to solving this climate crisis. So obviously we are here to make connections and to learn, but we're here to celebrate. It's been an incredibly hard road to get to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. There was an entire name change, right? I know everybody in this room gets this. The Inflation Reduction Act, that was not the original name. I see so many faces in this room of people who were essential to the enactment of this historic climate legislation. And to each of you, and to everyone who contributed their efforts, we are so grateful for this. And we want to take a well-deserved moment to pause and toast to the good work that has been accomplished. Take a moment, pause and toast, please. We as a community, and we are a community, even though many faces will be new to you because there's many contributing to the climate crisis across all different sectors, but as a community, we spend a lot of time stressing, and rightly so. But this is why We Don't Have Time and Zeta felt that we should show some appreciation to each of you, mainly through this open bar. And thank you, Pioneer Public Affairs, for sponsoring this bar for us tonight. Appreciate it. It's only, to those that are tuning in from wherever they are, it's only been an hour. So the point of this is to celebrate, but it's also to keep the momentum going. And I just want to say a few words about why we need to keep this momentum going as we look towards COP27. We are rapidly coming up to this UN climate conference known as COP27. And this is where next month, nations will meet, flanked by the private sector and civil society in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Few could have imagined that after COP26 in Glasgow, such massive disruptions would occur in energy prices and food supplies that would be triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This tension between the short-term need to keep the lights on in Europe and simultaneously to keep up our ambitions to global decarbonization will be what is at top of mind for delegates at COP. How do we do both of these things? And we understand that this is something that we need to come up with creative solutions to. But even before this war, this was an issue. It'll be no surprise to anyone here that despite the increased global awareness of the role of carbon emissions in the devastating weather effects we're experiencing here in the United States and around the world, that we are still actually increasing the number of carbon emissions yearly. This was the trend, it's still the trend. And we have even greater increase now following the invasion of Ukraine in coal from countries like South Africa, in imports of gas from the Middle East. So it's more critical than ever when nations come together at COP27 that we identify a clear global path forward towards clean energy and negative, not just neutral, but negative greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to energy, COP27 was always going to focus on food, especially given the lack of access to nutritious foods by less affluent countries, as well as the role of agriculture and our carbon-heavy global food production system. But food security and sustainable agriculture have even greater significance now this year as a result of the war. It's imperative to help vulnerable communities to adapt to these rising impacts. And of course, finance. Energy, food, finance. There's so many more topics that will be covered, but finance is a perennial topic. We know that less affluent, vulnerable countries to the impacts of climate change will still be questioning the actual support of rich countries. It's been 13 years that rich countries have promised $100 billion in climate finance to poorer countries, and this remains unfulfilled. Know that this will be top of mind at COP27 in Egypt next month. The big question mark still hanging over more than $30 trillion in climate finance pledges as well that have been made by banks and pension funds, asset managers. These pledges are facing accusations of greenwashing, and that these pledges are actually still supporting the fossil fuel economy. A major refrain to anticipate at COP27 will be the prohibitive cost of borrowing for climate finance by poorer countries because of these untenable interest rates that have been put in place. So I'm telling you all of this because you're here at this event that we're hosting in collaboration together. We Don't Have Time and Zeta. And know that We Don't Have Time will be at COP27. We'll be broadcasting from the diplomatic zone every day in partnership with the UNDP, with Global Commons Alliance. We'll be there for those 2 weeks. And we want you, if you're going to be there in person, to join us, but it doesn't matter. The whole point is we have the technology and we have the platform now. So join the conversation wherever you are in the world. We want your input. We need your input. We need your engagement. So together we can amplify and support good climate progress. And for those of you who've managed to get to the step and repeat, but we'll get you before you leave tonight if you haven't, there's a exclamation mark. That's the climate warning. And so we will also send warnings. We want to send love. We're optimistic. We're positive. We're looking to solve this climate crisis, and we know we can. But for those who aren't doing right by the environment and by the planet and by the humans and the entire ecosystem that resides on this planet, the one planet we call home, we want those decision makers to be held accountable. We want them to know that the world is watching. The decisions made today must reflect the reality of the risks we're facing on a rapidly warming planet. And those that do not reflect the reality of what we're facing will be hearing from us. We'll be hearing from all of us. So we were going to send I'm sending a climate love to the United States and to everyone that contributed to passing the Inflation Reduction Act. It was shaky in there for a minute, right? I didn't know if we were going to be sending the warning or the climate love. And there's a long way to go. This is our climate love. There's a long way to go still, and we need to obviously dramatically pick up the pace. But let's pause, let's take stock, let's celebrate, and let's send climate love today to the US, to each of you, and to ensure that we are going to be motivated and get that much closer to reaching our ambitious decarbonization goals. So, climate love to each of you. Thank you all for everything you've been doing. Thank you to the US for moving in the right direction ahead of COP. And my co-host for the evening, Joe Britton, I invite you to please join me up on stage. So, how come you got applause?
Second fiddle. Yeah.
So we're taking it up a notch from the cardboard heart to the glass heart. This is legit now. The green heart is now a glass heart. And this glass heart is how we're presenting 2 awards this evening to 2 remarkable individuals who've dedicated their careers in many capacities, but primarily as civil servants, to ensure that we are ushering in a more breathable and equitable future. So our first awardee, Joe will have the pleasure of presenting to.
So unfortunately, John Podesta cannot be here tonight, but he is absent for a good reason. He's taken on one of the most difficult jobs of his entire career, and I think if you think about that, he's adding it on to former White House Chief of Staff, President of the Center for American Progress, founder of Climate Power, trying to keep us on the playing field after we pass the climate bill, learning our lesson from the ACA that we don't go dormant. But he is now going to be in charge on behalf of President Biden, implementing the Inflation Reduction Act. And I think many of you here know, for as difficult as it was to pass the bill, implementation is going to be difficult and thorny, and it's going to take a lot of time and duress, but it's so, so important to get right to truly fulfill all of the goals that we've accomplished. And so in his absence, I'm going to be presenting this award, this Climate Love, to John Podesta.
We'll get this to John. Okay, and our second award is going to none other than Jigger Shaw. Prior to Jigger's role as director of the Loan Programs Office at the U.S. Department of Energy, overseeing a casual $40 billion budget, Jigger co-founded and was president of Generate Capital, where he focused on helping entrepreneurs accelerate decarbonization solutions through the use of low-cost infrastructure as service financing. And before that, similarly to John, right? If that wasn't enough, he founded Sun Edison, a company that pioneered a pay-as-you-save solar financing. Jigger served as the founding CEO of the Carbon War Room, a global nonprofit founded by Sir Richard Branson and Virgin Unite to help entrepreneurs address climate change. So all of this is incredible, right? But it was his hosting of the Energy Gang podcast that really hooked me. So thank you for that. It's rare that somebody driving solutions is also as strong of a communicator as you are. And we really appreciate you for that, Jigger. So please, everyone, welcome me and Joe in introducing Jigger and bringing him to the stage. Okay, so we are presenting you with this.
Oh my gosh. This is amazing.
It's not cardboard. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The weight of the love. Thank you so much, Jigger. The podium is yours.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Joe and Shweta. Look, I think for those of you who know me, I have a 7-year-old, and so he's going to love this Climate Love. He's all about love right now. It's like that beautiful time in a young boy's life. Look, I think that when you think about what we've accomplished with the Inflation Reduction Act, it really came from this never say die attitude from all of you, right? I mean, I think that when things looked dark and dire, right? I think folks said, no, this is still possible. And then even after we had like sort of false start that fell apart and then it passed 3 weeks later, I think people really kept the faith. And I really appreciate that because that is what it's going to take, right? It's going to take this unyielding desire to make this happen. And I think part of the reason why we care so deeply about not just policy, but also implementation, is because we had a false start, right? In 2008, 2009, the technologies were ready. We know that now, right? Solar power got cheap, wind power got cheap, lithium-ion batteries got cheap, electric vehicles became, a big thing, right? But back then, we were told by people the technologies weren't ready. We needed to focus only on R&D and not do deployment, right? Today, we're not making that mistake. We are absolutely going to do more R&D because we need to do more of it. but we're also going to deploy at scale, as the secretary says, deploy, deploy, deploy. And now we have not just the $369 billion, which is the Congressional Budget Office score, but if you read the Atlantic piece, it's a lot more than that, right? But the question is, what does it take? What does it take to get there? I live in Montgomery County, right? We have a county executive who declared a climate emergency in Montgomery County. But when you think about what we've done, very little, right? Why? Because we do not have a really clear mandate around how to make changes locally. For those of you who know the United States of America, we have 19,500 communities and towns in this entire country, right? We have hundreds of thousands of activists who are working on passing the IRA, putting a price on carbon, all these other things. I'll give you a story. You know, I had an extraordinary time in Pittsburgh. The secretary hosted 30 folks at the Clean Energy Ministerial. We went to, you know, an event, not dissimilar to this one, which was amazing. And this woman who was the recent head of sustainability from Nashua, New Hampshire, it came, right? Nashua, New Hampshire, do you think small town? No, 90,000 people. Not that small, right? They have rampant use of fuel oil, right? They need to use heat pumps, which we have in plentiful. Joe helped, you know, figure that out with, you know, Senator Heinrich. And, you know, when you think about where we are today, it's great. But when you look at the subsidies for the heat pumps, it pays for 562,000 heat pumps. Now, if you combine that with our loan authority and the virtual power plants that we're pushing out the door, with the tax credits that are there, with some of the weatherization and low-income housing energy assistance payments, you can get to 7.2 million heat pumps, right? It's pretty amazing. But how many people in Nashua, New Hampshire know how to combine all 5 of those things together into one program? Very few, right? The same thing's true with electric school buses. We put out an RFP for $500 million of grants for electric school buses out of a $5 billion program. EPA was starting small. We had $4 billion worth of applications that came in. The EPA immediately increased it to $967 million. Pretty amazing, right? But how many communities didn't apply? Because their, you know, like head of transportation for their school district said, I don't actually have a spare set of hands to even put the application into the Environmental Protection Agency, right? Solar panels. Who doesn't love solar panels, right? Australia is at 30% of all rooftops for single-family detached homes having solar panels on them. Where's the United States? 3.2%, right? What has Google done? Google has actually created Google Sunroof. We know exactly where everyone lives based on Google satellite. Little creepy, right? But my son loves it. He loves Google Earth. He gets right in there. It's great. But, you know, but like we know exactly where everyone lives that has a perfect roof for solar, right? But when you talk to the solar industry, what's their number one cost? Customer acquisition. Is there a mayor lifting a finger to help with that? No. Why? Because we need all of you who helped to implement the Inflation Reduction Act to actually go back to your towns, go back to your city councils, go back to your county commissioners and get them to do more, right? They have to implement all of the programs that we got money for. If they don't ask for the money, then we can't do it. That's how it works, right? I'll give you one other example because I know how hard it is. We have a national interest in this country, right? It's not just that we're doing this to save the planet. Yes, we are. But we're also doing this because when we perfect technology here Everyone around the world wants a part of it, right? And I love the rest of the world. I do. I was born in India. I came here when I was 1. I grew up here. I love it. But I've been around the world. I've been to 40 countries, and it's been wonderful. But they don't want to copy Europe. They want to copy us, right? We have 40 nuclear reactors that have been publicly announced that people in Eastern Europe want to do. But they're not going to do it unless we build them here. And I know, Vogtle nuclear reactor, it's over budget. It's so hard. But guess what? That was built like an airport. We have technologies that can be built like an airplane, right? Where it's the same thing over and over again. Same technology, same thing. Why is it important? Because the alternative is coal with carbon sequestration and storage or natural gas with carbon sequestration and storage. The alternative is not solar plus wind. Solar plus wind's amazing. As all of you know, I spent most of my career on solar power, right? But we need all of it. We need all the tools. And when we accomplish that, guess who wants it? India, Brazil, South Africa, other places. A lot of countries who are choosing now to decide, do I side with Russia? Do I side with the United States? Do I side with authoritarianism? Do I side with democracy? Right? It matters. And I get it. Nobody wants to bother with this stuff. It's hard. It's complicated. It feels a little weird. I didn't think I'd be in the national security sphere. Right? But that's what this is. Right? We have the world's best technologies here in the United States. And everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants a piece of our lithium-ion battery technology. LFP batteries, right? CATL and BYD, 2 Chinese companies are the largest manufacturers of those. Who invented it? UT Austin, right? It's our R&D, it's our technology, it's our stuff that's making it happen. Recycling plastics, that's us, right? Figuring out how we make hydrogen at $1 a kilogram, that's us. But we've got to figure out how to deploy at scale. We can't shy away from it. We have got to rise to the occasion and realize that America can do big things again. With that, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for this award.
Well, I'm Joe Britton. I'm the executive director of the Zero Emission Transportation Association. Jigger, thanks for coming. I thought boots and suits were a bold statement. Adidas, I really love. Well, appreciate everybody coming tonight. I'm going to share 2 thoughts or 2 stories with you. And it takes me back to, I guess, almost 20 years ago, I started in the U.S. Senate. And I was somebody that cared about children's health insurance, maybe investments in NASA, the things that really make and really place investments and put people first, pursue innovation. But I realized that climate change is something that we have to address before we can conquer anything else. It's something that's going to drag us all down. And so I've dedicated my life to addressing climate change and really want to thank everybody who's made the Zero Emission Transportation Association real. 3 years ago, we were just an idea, but now we're the preeminent federal EV advocacy organization, all pushing for 100% EV sales by the year 2030. So give the team a round of applause. And I guess the thing, and David Shepardson, if this was you, I apologies for not giving you a due credit, but there was a reporter who was asking diplomats around the world recently, do they ever talk about the lack of U.S. leadership? Do they ever talk about their worries about democracy? And it was striking to me because one of these foreign diplomats said, do we talk about it? It's all we ever talk about. And I think there was some doubt about whether the United States would rise to the challenge when it came to climate change, whether we would be a nation that just talked about these challenges, sometimes in ways that passed judgment on other countries, or whether we would rise to the challenge and get something really meaningful done. And so I'm thrilled that we're back. We're actually now going to be able to thrust ourselves into not just passing the legislation, but implementing it. And like Jigger said, we can't just see this moment as the end. This is something where we need to go and convince communities, mayors, municipalities, families, that this stuff is right for them and their family, not just electric vehicles, but heat pumps, rooftop solar, community solar. There's a huge opportunity for us to get this right, and it's going to take all of us engaging communities all across the United States. So I'm thrilled that we're back, and I'm thrilled that the U.S. is back in the driver's seat. I was actually just in Stuttgart, Germany. I was at a hydrogen fuel cell conference, and it was real. People thought, maybe the U.S. was a country that just talked about things, but there was a real sense of, the European nations had maybe passed us by. They all were now kind of looking over their shoulder, wondering if they had been passed by the United States. And so this is a huge moment. I'm glad that we're all here to commemorate it. The last thought that I'll leave you with, and this is partly from my experience working on the Affordable Care Act years ago, is that I'd like everybody to kind of look around the room, because we will be frozen in time a little bit. We will always look back on this moment when we, after decades and decades, finally passed climate legislation. You will remember each other in the roles and in the leadership positions and the effort that you put forward to pass this bill. You'll always look back on this moment. So it was way too hard. It took way longer than we ever needed. I remember we were like, if we win those Georgia Senate seats, we're gonna have reconciliation done by Inauguration Day. July of 20 came and went, July of 21 came and went. So this took a lot of time and effort and patience. We all endured a lot of duress, but I think it steeled us in this kind of moment together where we all, we're rowing together, we were all in harness, and it does take each and every one of us not only to get a bill passed into law, but again, now the new challenge that we have ahead of us to engage communities and make sure that it's done right and make sure that we get the most out of this. Tax credits are unlimited, people. It's not a set amount of money that's gonna run out. We need to go and convince everybody that the time is right and the time is now. So thank you for everything that you've done. I was kind of hoping that the Strutman Lane would be up here behind me and there'd be some fireworks and we could roll right into some music, but it'll take 15 minutes to set up, and then we're gonna have some fun and dance and enjoy some drinks. So thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate your help and support, and congratulations.